Airbnbs, this is what we're talking about today. Getting rich from Airbnbs, being a property owner and making Airbnbs.
It wasn't until, I want to say, March or April when I really started looking into short-term rental. I started off with a realtor who was already doing Airbnbs. So I wanted to only work with people who were already in the business so I can learn from their mistakes already.
Tell me about these tools that you used and to know that, like, because you want to know that people are going to rent in this area. That's obviously big, first and foremost.
I've seen how a lot of these third-party data sources make money and also get their data.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch. I'm your YouTube friend Brad, and we are talking side hustles again here today, and I have a guest where I read this article and I said, I got to get Kent on my show. Kent, you're on my show. Welcome.
What's up, man? How you guys doing?
Kent kind of decided to get into property ownership and using Airbnb as that property ownership. So let's just go ahead and start from the beginning. Where did you get this idea? Because it became successful for you. We'll talk about that, obviously, but just give me your whole background on when this started for you and what the idea was.
Yeah, I would say the silver lining during COVID was really, hey, spent a lot more time at home, decided to read a lot more books about alternative careers. At that point in time, my wife was also pregnant with our first baby. So sometimes things just click and you're like, hey, let me just put a lot of effort into really thinking about the future and what am I going to provide for my daughter going forward. So I listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books on real estate, and finally decided that, hey, if I'm trying to leave my W-2 job that's full-time, the first thing I need to do is replace my current income. And you can only do that with cash flow on a monthly basis. At that point in time, the asset class that provided the most cash flow per month was short-term rentals. So my goal was always to provide affordable housing and generate high cash flow through short-term rentals. And that strategy just made a lot of sense to me. And from that point onwards, I just started learning how to analyze deals. I gave myself a habit of analyzing one deal every single day. If I could do that, then when the time comes, when a deal comes, I would know how to spot the deal. And that all comes from just putting in reps and analyzing deals every single day, talking to people and seeing what has worked for them. And I came from a data science background. I used to work at an insurance company. So I learned a lot about what bad data means. And I saw how people were underwriting. By underwriting, I mean analyzing properties to see whether or not they would cash flow as a short-term rental. And I found some really outsized opportunities. And I'm happy to get into those details whenever you want to bring them up or talk about them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really how it all began. So we bought our first home in August of 2021. We bought the home for $800,000. We renovated it for about $126,000. And we got it reappraised at $1.15 million. So we just gained $350,000 of equity in less than a year. And we refinanced that property out with a home equity loan. And we were able to take back out $250,000. And that was the day that my best friend and I, we both grew up in affordable housing, and we both became millionaires that day. So that was really, really cool to do that and go through that, and having a friend or buddy go through those very scary times, but then come out on the other side on top. And it was really, really rewarding. And that's why I just want to share what I know with you, your audience, and the world, because I think anybody can do it.
Yeah. So from the start of, okay, I want to do this, how many months, years, days, weeks did you look at properties? Like how many you said one a day, right? You did the research on one property a day. Give me that feel. And then how did you finally wind up? $800,000 is a lot to spend on a second property too. So I'm just curious how you came up with a number like, ooh, that's a big number.
Yeah, honestly, I was asking my wife the same thing. I was like, why'd you let me do that? That sounds crazy. So I probably made this decision in December of 2020, I want to say. That's when I really started putting my head down and reading a lot more books. And from that point onwards, it wasn't until, I want to say, March or April when I really started looking into short-term rentals, because for the longest time I was looking at some turnkey operators, meaning turnkey is like when you buy a fully renovated home and someone places a tenant in there already for you. So there's a lot of different, how would I say it, nuances to deciding and even picking your strategy, but you just got to pick something. And for me, if my goal was to leave my W-2 job, I want to higher cash flow. So it was a pretty easy choice to at least prioritize that in the near term to chase the higher cash flow. So between March and when we first put an offer in, it was about 4 months. So I probably roughly analyzed about 100 properties, give or take.
And you live in San Diego, right? But this property was in Scottsdale, so you weren't just looking at your home base. You had a wide swath going. Tell me about just that decision to not stick to where you live, to think about a place that you didn't live.
Yeah, so great question. I think the biggest fear that people have when they want to invest in real estate is the fear of the unknown, right? What gave me the confidence to go invest in Scottsdale was that I had a team who already was doing short-term rentals, from the agent to the cleaners to the renovations, the painter, flooring guys, whatever you want to have as part of your setup for your Airbnb. Once you have that team in place, that gives you a tremendous amount of confidence that you will succeed. I would say.
Can I ask you this real quick?
In business,
yeah, let me ask real quick. Just so, was this just one singular management team, or this was you had a cleaning, you had the management team, you had, or was it one property management team, or was it a bunch of different people different groups that created your quote team?
It was a bunch of different people. Great question. I started off with a realtor who was already doing Airbnbs. So I wanted to only work with people who were already in the business so I can learn from their mistakes already. I didn't want to come in here and just rediscover everything all on my own, because that's how you pay, quote unquote, tuition, right? And usually that costs you a lot of money. That's not where I wanted to play. So by finding a realtor who was also specializing in bachelorette Airbnbs, I was like, okay, cool. I can see her numbers. She's very open. She shared her numbers with me, and that gave me a lot more confidence about what our property can potentially achieve in that short period of time. So when you have the team, you have the confidence. And honestly, I think it was even better that we invested out of state, because it forced us to build the team, the systems, the processes, so that I'm not tempted to drive over to the home every single time something is going wrong. I'd rather just do a text message really quick and solve the problem.
That is an unbelievable advice, because yes, I would want to be there every second. What's going on over there? I just saw a deer run through. What's going on? I need to check my Ring camera.
Yeah, you can drive yourself crazy. What do we get into this for? We got into this for time freedom, so we can spend more time with our family and kids. There's going to be problems no matter what, but you don't want to be the person going there and fixing the toilet yourself. You want to be the person you're just a glorified coordinator, if you really think about it from a self-management standpoint. You're just a glorified coordinator. Anything happens, you have 3 plumbers, 3 handymen, 3 electricians, 3 pool guys, and you just go down the list. That's it.
How'd you find those people? Because you're not living in Scottsdale? Was that? Tell me about that research.
You can do a couple ways. So obviously you can start with your connections in your realtor network that's already serving Airbnbs. You can go to local Facebook groups just simply type in like, hey, I'm looking for a dependable cleaner. Who do you guys recommend? I'm looking for a dependable handyman. Who do you recommend? And then build a relationship with them. I probably had one handyman that I didn't really need a job for. I had him install gutters at my home. I didn't need gutters in Scottsdale. It barely rains. But I wanted to make sure I get him, give him a job, and then also pay him right away so he knows that I am a dependable partner. And when it comes to paying my invoices, I pay right away. So next time, one story is like, hey, I have a beauty bar in my thing. One day it fell down. My other handyman was busy, so I called him up and I made sure that he fixed it before the next guest checked in. That's it. I mean, the problem is, whatever the problem is, it's just who you're going to text. That's, if you simplify to that point in time, you should not be scared of the problems that will come up. And you just got to believe in yourself that you have the ability in a team to solve that problem whenever that problem comes up.
I love this. You're like a middle manager. You don't have to even deal with people. I love it. So I guess the next question I read, were these tools that you used, AIR DNA, was one of them. I'm trying to find the other one that I liked that you used, Price Labs.
Yeah, Price Labs.
Yeah, so
Rank
tell me about those, and just I see that you have to if you get into this, it looks like you may have to subscribe to those. As I was looking at them this morning, but just tell me a little bit about what those did for you and how those work. Because I was looking, I told you off camera. My wife last night was like, "Oh my God, there's this property on this beautiful part of St. Louis. Let's go look at it." And I didn't even know that she was in that mindset. I've been talking about this for the last 2 months. She's getting kind of over me talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking, and I thought, okay, well, it's under 60. You said you want it to be over 60%, so that it's right at the 58%. Yeah. But tell me about these. Tell me about these tools that you used, and to know that, like, because you want to know that people are going to rent in this area. That's obviously big. First and foremost, don't want to own a property where people aren't going to rent.
Correct. So I started using AirDNA is just my first filter. I've seen how a lot of these third-party data sources make money and also get their data. And I think if I were to step back and just educate your listeners first and foremost about how these people get data, the number one data point that you need when you are underwriting or analyzing your short-term rental to see when it's going to be profitable is your gross revenue, right? That's your top of the line. That's how much sales you're going to make from the property. And similar to when you're buying a long-term rental, how much can I charge for rent in this market, in this neighborhood? This is why this number is so important, because that first number at the top, that's going to flow all the way down and figure out how much you're going to make on terms of profits. So when these websites like Data Rabu, like Price Labs, like AirDNA, what they're doing is it's almost like a screenscaping solution, which means they look at each listing every day, every week, every month, whatever the cadence is. And they assume whatever day is blocked off is a night that it's been booked, and whatever rate that last nightly rate reflected is how much it was booked for. The problem with that is, well, what if I just want to block off a weekend to use for my own home? Well, what if I'm thinking about selling the home and I want to inflate my numbers on these websites and I just block them off so I can, scam people? That will happen.
No way. People are trying to scam people in this world. Shocking.
You have to be very, very smart. So I would never look at any data point in there. And your guest can go to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Kent_he. I put out a video on there on how I analyze deals and how you can figure out what your niches are. But honestly, I think that way of underwriting is better than at least 80% of America and how everybody's underwriting, because I actually go through the steps that you should take to get the accuracy. And because I have a data background in tech where I worked with a bunch of data scientists, worked with a bunch of developers, I was very, very scared about making the wrong decision and losing a lot of money. Hence why I dug really deep to prove myself like, hey, I know there's this risk here, but here's how I'm proving it with data. So when you go through the Price Labs market dashboard, you're going to export it. Make sure you put in all the columns that I put into the YouTube video. You definitely want to look at estimated revenue. You definitely only want to look at properties with greater than 15 reviews, because guess what? If it's a new listing and they only have 3 reviews, but for some reason, like they were just putting a listing up and they put it at $10,000 a night just so no one books it, but somehow it got blocked off, guess what? That $10,000 a night is going to flow into revenue. And now you're all of a sudden thinking like this brand new listing with 3 reviews has made over $500,000 in revenue. That is so, so wrong. It's such a wrong way to approach it. So that's why I created a YouTube video, to make sure people don't fall into that trap of overestimating or underestimating the revenue. And the reason I set up all these criteria is that I realized I was burning so much time analyzing all these deals, and I needed to create a structure that I can quickly rule out when properties were not worth my time. So I think, Brad, you mentioned about St. Louis, and you were looking into, hey, whether or not the demand here makes sense. So if it's at least 60 or above, at least you know there's something there. So you're not fighting the uphill battle. The next step is, well, you do a rule of thumb. I use a 20% rule of thumb that says, hey, if you think that this property is going to make about $100,000 in gross revenue, I should not pay more than $500,000. So 100 out of 500 is 20%. 20% rule, or just multiply by 5. Simple enough. But that allows you to quickly realize, like, hey, what if there's beautiful lake house in there that's making $100,000, but all the lake houses are $1 million? Then it doesn't make sense. You move on. So you don't burn so much time over analyzing. And this is why people never have, or people would just have an excuse like, I don't have enough time. I'm literally telling you how to save time in this process. So you are only concentrating on the properties that make the most sense.
That's a great equation. I love it. Tell me about, and I should know, but it's just there's so many different rules, tax breaks and tax help because of owning properties. Tell me just how was that part of your equation too when you got into this, or tell me a little bit about when you, because I always hear the best way to quote fudge your taxes. Not that you're doing that, but the best way to get help on your taxes is by owning property and real estate. Is that a portion of why we're doing this? And then tell me a little bit about those sort of wins that you get when you own property.
Yeah, I would say there's really three ways to make money, right? And I want to make sure I step it back and make sure like I'm educating all your listeners. There's three ways to make money. One is you fix and flip, which is you buy a distressed home, do the renovations, and sell for more money. You can do wholesaling, which means you lock up a property, you sell that contract to somebody for the rights to that contract, and you're simply the deal finder. You make them a little money for a finder's fee, they call it an assignment fee. The third way is buy and hold. Buy and hold just means you own a property and you rent it back out. The reason buy and hold is so advantageous on a tax standpoint, and full disclaimer, I'm not a CPA. This is not legal tax or financial advice. But with tax benefits, when it comes to real estate, the number one cheat code is depreciation. Even though we all know that real estate, on a long trajectory, the prices go up, the IRS gives you a deduction. It's called depreciation. And it actually says, hey, we assume that your home is actually going down in value every single year instead of going up. So that's why it's such a cheat code. You get to use that depreciation loss to offset your income. And it normally, sometimes it gives you very, very great tax benefits where you don't have to pay taxes on your rental income if you qualify and if numbers make sense. When it comes to short-term rentals, there are new rules in place. I believe this year is like 80% bonus depreciation, but you get to take a cost segregation study, which means you hire a bunch of engineers and law and accounting firms to do a study on your home, and they try to figure out how much more can they depreciate the home in the first year when it's set up. Depending on your qualifications, your status, your real estate professional status, how many hours you participated in the business of operating short-term rentals, you can qualify for numerous deductions. And everyone's situation is going to be very different. So just know that your best benefit is depreciation. Without getting into so much more weeds for it, it's essentially a cheat code that says you can take losses against your home, even though your home is going up in value. And I think that's probably the best way to explain it for someone that's just looking into this world and don't want to get into all the weeds of all the details.
No, that's great. So you bought the first one in Scottsdale. You created kind of a bachelorette haven. So it wasn't just buying an Airbnb. You can see it, and I'll put some pictures up, but you can see it in the article. Very important to kind of give it a niche too, right? And I read in your article, like, it also has to be a niche. Like what we were thinking is this place is on the Hill. I'm just going to give out all our information. Mm-hmm. It was on this place called the Hill. It's where Yogi Berra, the baseball player, Joe Garagiola, very famous St. Louis Italian neighborhood, a very nice small little house. And there's a soccer stadium 5 miles away, called the Cardinals. It's basically close to downtown. Walking. We're like, this sounds great. So that was our niche. Hey, look, we've got this beautiful. Again, this happened last night, so we're not. Who knows if we're gonna do it? But we're talking about it. But you decided I'm not just getting a house. I'm gonna make this something special for people. A destination type house. Give me the thoughts on that.
Well, here's the thing. If you ever ask people for thoughts on it and they tell you something without any data, don't believe them. That's all I got to say. But I'll tell you the process that's going to apply to your market, any market that you look at. So when you go to Price Market Dashboard, filter on whatever subject property you're looking at. Is it a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom? You say you saw a home there. What was that bedroom count?
Well, 2-bedroom.
2-bedroom, great. So I might look at all the properties that are 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms in that market, download all that spreadsheet. And what I would do is I would first look at the top 50 listings that's filtered and sorted by gross revenue, and only look at the properties with at least 15 reviews or higher. From that point onwards, you're going to click into every single listing, and here's what you're going to do. I did this in my YouTube video as well, but what you should do is click on the reviews and read all the reviews of top 50 listings. You're going to start understanding why are these listings the top performers. Now, you mentioned like, hey, 5 miles to whatever stadium, whatever, right? I don't know that people are going there specifically for the stadium. If I told you right now, like, that sounds great, I'm lying. What you need to do is do some keyword searches and look at the reviews. And this is how I found out my niche for Bachelorette's in Scottsdale. When I took the 200 listings for 3 to 5 bedroom properties, I went through every single listing. I clicked on the word reviews and I typed in a keyword search on bachelorette or girls trip. And that's where I found that of all the reviews for the top 200 listings, 40% of reviews mention the word bachelorette or girls trip. Now, that might be very different for your market. It might never mention bachelorettes. So
I'm gonna guess
not do a bachelorette.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess not. Yes.
But you never know. But that's why. You never know. But that's why someone would be lying to you if they say, like, oh, everybody comes here for sports. Well, why don't you go do some searches in your thing and type in family or fam, type in group or groups, type in views. Maybe if your property is on top of a hill, look at the top performing properties in your market and see how often is the word views mentioned. So you know whether or not there is actually a premium associated with the house with a view.
Yeah, which site and this is one of the 2 sites we already mentioned, right? Is that where you're kind of...
So this is my own research. So you would download it through Price Labs. The whole point of Price Labs is so that you understand who your top players are in that market. From that point onwards, all this additional research, that's on your own. You are going into each listing because it will provide you with the Airbnb link. When you open the Airbnb link, you will see that it has 50 reviews, 5 reviews, whatever it is, whatever rating. Click on the word reviews, and now it's going to show you all the reviews from a historical standpoint, right? You can do a keyword search in there and type in bachelorette, type in family. Because if you figure it out, like, hey, this market in St. Louis, people really do want to be walking distance, right? And they will literally put in the word walk or walking or walkable. Because now you can figure out, like, how far can I be away from the stadium before I see a cliff or drop off in revenue? There's so many decisions that you have to go through. First is just geographical. Like, you got to know where the hotspots are. You might say this is a great area, but I might say that's too far now, right? Because it's no longer walking distance to the stadium. You say 5 miles. Well, what if no one wants to be 5 miles from the stadium? What if only people want to be walking distance? I don't know that. You don't know that until you actually go in and look at the data yourself. And that's the best way to go about the underwriting process. It's like that's why in my video, I show the audience how to do like a hover around all these little dots in a Price Labs market dashboard. And that will tell you where is the cliff or drop off. Because if you have a stadium, as your mouse cursor goes further and further away, what are properties making? Where does the cliff drop off? And eventually you figure out, like, oh yeah, that is definitely too far. Maybe we cross the highway, it's no longer there. Or maybe we're no longer walking distance, and that's why it's not performing. So this is all the steps that you need to really go through. Is like, 1, geographically, where's your cliff or drop off? 2, what is the niche that needs to be applied to your property? And if it's family, great. Go all out, put in pack and plays, put in child safety locks on the cabinets, put in high chair strollers, provide all that stuff to make your parents that are traveling with kids, make their life a lot easier so they don't have to stuff their car full of stuff. And then you figure out what your niche is. Or how far can you be? Are people going for stadiums? If so, maybe you have a sports themed home. I don't know. It's whatever you think fits best based on the data that you're seeing in the data. And that is all available to you. So you're not making it up. You're trying to challenge yourself and say, like, well, where can I lose money? What if I'm wrong on this guess? What if I'm wrong on family theming? Yeah, I could be wrong on family theming, but I just looked at the reviews for the top 50 listings, and 70% of the reviews mention the word family or fam or family trip. There you go. Don't be scared.
I don't believe that you've only been doing this for 3 years. You sound like a genius from 20 years of ups and downs. It's amazing. I really do. I love this conversation. Go ahead.
Well, I want to help your audience because I was so scared. This is why I went into the level of detail that I did, because I was petrified about taking this risk. I never knew anything about real estate. Real estate was always a game that was designed for the wealthy. That's what I assumed. How often do we walk by an apartment building or a building that's being built right now? It's like, wow, I wonder who's building that. Probably someone really, really rich. That's something I would never be able to achieve. And we just got to be careful about the things that we tell ourselves and say to ourselves, because our body is going to engineer the feeling to make that come true. So once you start saying, like, I'm going to figure out how to de-risk this process, it will look for different ways to prove yourself wrong or prove yourself right.
No, we go to Florida every year. We like the Cardinals, as I've mentioned, the St. Louis tie here, and they play in kind of near West Palm Beach. We stay in this area. It's near the PGA. They do the Honda Classic every February there, so there's a big golf tournament there. I believe a place that we stayed is an Airbnb 2018. I think it was, we were looking at other listings around. We're like, man, this is really nice. 2 bedrooms, it's beautiful. It was like $230,000. We're like, boy, God, if we could only just, maybe next year we'll come down, we'll put some money on it. Now, $500,000. In 4 years, it went up more than double. We're very mad at ourselves, but you're right. You have to just do it, right? So we got a lot of ways to get a hold of you and watch you, but your YouTube channel, you mentioned that. I've seen a lot of the videos you're creating there. Just plug away, tell people how they can get a hold of you and see what you're doing and the way you're helping people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for the opportunity. You can always DM me anytime on Instagram. I'm at Invest with Kent He, INVESTWITHKENTHE. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/@Kent_he. And honestly, my goal is to make my free content better than any paid content out there, because I truly believe in just giving all the value back. My hope is that you and your audience make a ton of money from real estate. And I'll just share my story really quick if you're okay with that, Brad.
Please do.
I'm a first-generation Chinese immigrant. My dad came up with $1,000 in his pocket, and my mom's first job was making $3 an hour. And we lived in an apartment in Chinatown in Boston where there were 9 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. Super nasty. When you flicked on the lights, you can hear the cockroaches kind of just scurrying away. One night, we had $5,000 of cash out because we were getting ready to bring back home to China to repay some of our relatives. Someone climbed to our second floor window, broke through the kitchen, stole everything. Now, for some people, that might have been the last straw, like whatever you want to call it. But what kept my mom going was hope. And that hope came from being on a wait list for affordable housing. So that's why I'm on a mission now to create the largest affordable housing investment community in the United States, because I am hoping that we can provide the light and the hope to so many families out there and just dispel the myth that affordable housing is just guns, drugs, and drama. It's helping someone just like my mom who didn't know English, who needs a solid foundation to kind of launch and provide a good roof over their heads over our kids. Without affordable housing, I would not be where I am today. So this is why I want to share this stuff. I'm not naive. I know people need to make money in this world to reinvest back into the causes that they care about. This is why I care. This is why I share this information. I hope you and your listeners make a ton of money through short-term rentals, get that financial freedom that you're looking for, and one day invest in some of the affordable housing projects that we're working on right now through either being a mom and pop landlord or team up with me on some ground up construction where we're building apartment buildings where we're dedicating half the units for affordable housing. So that's what I really care about. So for people that were wondering, why am I sharing so much information? This is it. I imagine every single apartment that I put a family in there as helping someone like my mom. And that's what keeps me going. That's my passion. Yeah. Thank you for letting me share that story, man.
Absolutely. No. And it's the whole goal of this channel is to highlight people that had a 9-to-5 job and decided they didn't want to do that. They wanted to do what they really wanted to do. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing something they wanted to do. I'm not there yet. I like what I do for a full-time job.
It's great.
I don't love
superpower.
I don't love what I do. So I used.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I used to love, but I hated the hours, and so now it's this. You got to find that balance. But it sounds like you have kind of found that niche, and you're right on that runway.
Yeah, I think short-term rentals has given me the power to pursue something that I would have never thought to pursue, and I think you do not need to quit your job. Because guess what? If you are able to do the side hustle correctly, you will be able to attract so much capital. I wish someone gave me this advice when I was still in the W-2 job. If I looked at every one of my coworkers as my potential partners, I would have loved to stay even longer. Because now guess what? Your reputation is already solid around your closest group of colleagues at your workplace. Now you have a pool of investors who also want to do the same thing as you, who also want to achieve the same financial and time freedom. You would be doing them a favor by bringing them amazing opportunities. And this is it. Like when you go through a path and you got to get all the scrapes and bruises to chop down a path for your other colleagues to join in, it's like, hey, at some point in time, you don't need to convince them to do it, but just say, hey, I've gone through, I got the cuts and the bruises and the scrapes. Here's another path for you. Feel free to take a step along this path because I've already gone there. And that gives so many more people the confidence and ability to change their lives because you have gone through that yourself. And hey, if you're not stressed for a paycheck on a weekly basis because you have the income, you can really turbocharge your wealth because you can start giving away all your capital. People ask me all the time, how did you raise capital? I say, well, let's take a real example. My last property that I bought, my friends put in $200,000 of their own money. They took the loan out their name. I put in $50,000 of my own money. But guess what? I said the first $75,000 of cash flow that would have went to me will go to you first to pay you back because you put more money into the deal. So once we get up to 125, then we'll split it. But because I still have a stable income, I didn't care, right? You're able to give away more of the deal to a partner who's willing to believe in you, but then also get them started on their path to financial freedom. So if you have a stable income, your W-2 is really a superpower. You should stay in it. And on top of that, that will allow you to raise capital because, hey, look, you assume a 20% cash on cash return and you keep buying all these deals with other people's money, chances are in 5 years from now, you would have had 5, 10, if not 20 times more properties than you would have had if you were just doing it on your own. But it starts with the first one. And that's my goal with you guys watching the YouTube video is like, I'm trying to teach you guys how to do it. And if you just took what I teach in the YouTube video and replicate it step by step and showed people on a weekly basis, this is how I recognize it when a deal is a deal, they're going to be like, wow, I know Brad knows how to spot a deal now. Next time Brad brings me a deal, I'm ready to invest with them. Because the number one skill in real estate is not learning how to be a closer, is not learning how to underwrite, it's raising private capital. That is the hardest thing that I believe that you can learn and that you should learn, but it comes with just providing so much value to people that you cannot be ignored when the time comes, when a deal comes through.
Yeah. This is Kent. He's my new friend. I'll be calling him every hour on the hour now. He didn't even know this, but now he's just going to get him bombarded. Hey, Kent, what about this? What about this area? I thank you so much, and in the description you'll see all of the links and your YouTube channels and your Instagram. Last thought before I close out our show today for the people. If you have one, you might not have one. Yeah. Maybe we've done it.
Work on something that makes you uncomfortable. For me, 2 years ago, I was reading, but for me to condition my mind, what I started doing was I started taking cold showers. 15 seconds cold shower at the end of your shower. 30 seconds the next week. 45 seconds. Because once you get over that fear of that pain, that's when the magic really happens. Just like this fear of you buying your first property, you had to start conditioning your brain. It's a repetition process. Now you're like, oh, that moment wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because guess what? When you're in that warm shower and you're trying to like, oh, I don't really want to turn this shower cold. That part is always worse than the actual part when the cold shower comes on. So use that, apply it towards every other part of your life. And hey, I'm here. I'm free. Please let me know if you guys need any help.
I appreciate it. Kent, this is a wonderful conversation. Again, you can see in the description how to get a hold of Kent. I thank you so much. I really did enjoy this. I hope our fans here who watch were inspired and go out and do what Kent has said, but make sure you go check out his Instagram channel and also his YouTube channel. And that's going to do it for today's show. I appreciate you coming here. We'll see you next time.